feel so lucky to have this opportunity to meet and speak with Margabandhu. Margabandhu, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much.
It's really is
Honor to
a,
be here.
tell me. I'm sorry.
So, no, it's a real honor to be here, and I heard so much about you. So there's a mutual respect here. So whatever you want me to say and whatever you want me to cover, I'll be okay.
Oh, well, I really appreciate that. I see that you have been running the Integral Yoga Institute, New Jersey, for 50 plus years, and that is absolutely amazing. Congratulations on finding yoga and spreading it for that long and holding down a center. What is it? How do we encapsulate 50 years of teaching into a 1 hour
Mm.
yoga podcast? It's going to be challenging. I think we can do it though. I think we can do
Okay,
it. All right.
I'm up for
All right.
it.
Well, I appreciate that. Just so our listeners are hip to your history and the way that I found you is because I love the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali by Swami Satchidananda, and I had a student come in and she told me that she knew you and that you have are a student, a direct student of Satchidananda, and I guess I'm just so curious to hear about how you met Satchidananda.
Well, in the 60s, when that revolution was going around, and we were all looking for, there was the Vietnam War, there was drugs all over the place, and everybody's looking to find their place in society. And I was in school at the time, in college at the time, and in a way, I wasn't really happy being in school, but I was just looking for some type of direction that would make me focus on something that I want to do for the rest of my life. And I had met Swami Satchidananda through the Rascals. They were on tour, and they took me to see him. And at that time, my health wasn't that great. I wasn't feeling well. I was doing a lot of things I wasn't supposed to be doing. And Swami Satchidananda right away got into the whole energy field of like what I really needed. And he said, the first thing you have to do is, he says, I'm not going to tell you not to do anything. I'm just going to give you an alternative the way I think might be better. So I got into the yoga postures, the breathing, the meditation, and watching my diet, watching my eating habits. And like I said, he never said to become a vegetarian. What he did first, he taught me the mechanics of everything. Even with diet, he didn't say become a vegetarian. He taught me the mechanics of eating. And all the pluses that I should be doing as eating and appreciating everything else around me. So I learned to focus on what was really necessary for me to like maintain my health and find out what direction I really wanted to go in. You know.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
yeah, and the first thing he did, in the beginning, because everybody did yoga, he was doing yoga. He gave me a book called All Life is Sacred, and it was about animals and human beings and how sacred life is, and it was like almost like my introduction to becoming a vegetarian. I read the book and I'm saying, well, this sounds logical, and so I tried becoming a vegetarian, and I was working at an Italian deli at the time, so I was like, I was eating cold cuts every day, and
Yeah.
so, but yeah, it came very natural to me. I became a vegetarian, and as I got more involved with him, and I was concerned about my not only physical health but my emotional and mental well-being, he gave me a book called The Science of Pranayama by his teacher Swami Shivananda, and I read the book, and it was a very small book, but it showed me the different aspects of the different types of pranayama that you could do for certain conditions like physical, mental, emotional health. And so I really got into it in the beginning, pranayama, and it's kind of, for me, it's like the best way to go. I mean, I do the postures every day, I do the meditation, but every morning I do at least 25 minutes of pranayama before I even meditate.
Oh, nice.
And Swami Shivananda had a particular healing meditation called the Shivananda breath. And I do that 3 times a day. See.
Can you explain what the mechanics of that breathing is like?
Well, it's basically done like the basic three-part deep breathing in yoga where you inhale and and exhale, like, but what happens is when he says you would inhale counting to three, hold the breath counting to six, and then the exhalation, the amount of time on the exhalation didn't matter. But during the retention, you focus on that particular body that you feel needs that extra energy or that extra prana. See?
Mm,
And
nice.
that's what I did. And he said that by doing this particular breathing technique called the Shivananda healing breath and focusing on that particular body that needs that extra prana, he said you could heal anything in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow.
I was in a car accident a few years ago, and the ventricles to my heart were damaged. I was in the hospital. They thought I had a heart attack, and I just started doing these breathing techniques, and because they had me on the operating table. They were going to put a stent in.
Yeah.
And then the cardiologist saw on he says, no, it's not his heart. He said the airbag, when the airbag hit me, it damaged the ventricles to my heart. So he didn't need a stent. So they didn't do the surgery. And then my niece's husband, who was a doctor, he says, you know what, Margabandhu, he says, you know what to do. So I went into the Shivananda healing breath
Uh,
and we built up those ventricles. I was getting shortness of breath and I was in the hospital for a while, you know.
yes. Wow. You said 3 second inhale, 6 second hold, and then the duration of the exhale as long as you want.
Yeah.
And
And
do you,
the
do you,
retention in yoga, they call it kumbhaka.
yes.
And that's when the body heals, the retention of the prana. So when
Mm,
you inhale in counting or three, whatever you want to count into, and you
yeah.
hold the breath, they call it kumbhaka. The retention is actually when the body rebuilds itself. See, so
Wow.
that's what I did. I still do it every day, 3 times a day.
Do
You know,
you do you add in some sort of visualization at that point? If you had indication that there was something wrong with your heart, did you
I, I
bring it?
imagine, yeah, I imagine the part of the body that needed extra healing. And I imagine it in a healthy state. In
Wow.
other words, if there was the ventricles that were damaged, the capillaries were broken. I
Yeah.
imagine capillaries in a perfect healthy state. I imagine the blood supply going through the capillaries. See,
How long
and
did
then
it take for the doctor to notice that what you were doing was showing some positive result?
Gary, I knew really well because he was my niece's my husband. So he was very cooperative. And I
Mm,
have a good relationship today. And he says, because he told me, he says, Mark Mound, he says, you know what? You know what to do. He says, he just I was released and he says, go home and take care of yourself. And that's
yeah.
what I did. Because what happened during the hospital was in the hospital, I got COVID because they had me in the COVID ward. So I got really sick.
Oh my
So I
God.
went walk for a while. I couldn't stand up. I was really in bad shape.
Oh,
Pranayama really helped out tremendously. I mean, it's a life for me. It's a lifesaver.
that's
You know,
incredible. That's
yeah,
incredible, Margabandhu. I love hearing this sort of stories. Now, you've been able to teach pranayama for so many years. Have you had any
yes,
students come up to you and say, I can attest, Margabandhu, to the power of this?
yeah. There's a few. See, we're doing a pranayama training program. So I'm one of the people that are leading the training program, and there's a few people that are taking the training program really feel that pranayama has really saved them on a
Mm,
physical level, on an emotional level. We're doing a pranayama training program starting next month, and it's on all the prana, the mudras, the bandhas, all the different conditions. Because I've taught pranayama in different, like I taught in prisons for a while. I taught
wow.
in psychiatric wards. I taught autistic kids. So
Oh,
breathing seems the best way to go.
amazing.
If some people
Amazing.
can't do the postures.
You
See,
know
I
that,
taught in prison for like 5 years.
wow. I'm so
Yeah.
curious about that too. What was that experience like?
It was really when I first went, I was approached by a psychologist. This was about 1970. We were living in Convent Station, New Jersey, and Convent Station there was a prison there, was a jail there. That was where all the trials went. So you had all the psychologists and all the wardens. They were all there in this particular prison. So they approached me and they asked me if I would do. They want to do like a test, like how prisons would function during yoga deep relaxation, yoga nidra, that's what we call it,
Yeah.
And so I said, okay. I went down, and there was 7 prisoners, and so what they wanted to do, they wanted me to teach them yoga, but they were curious about the deep relaxation part. So they put electrodes on each one. And before the class, they tested them and their anxiety level was 8 or 9. And he wanted to see after yoga nidra what happened, like how much it would, progress.
Yeah.
So after deep relaxation, they were down 2 or 3.
Wow.
So so they were so impressed. Now they're going to have me teach classes on a regular basis.
Amazing.
So yeah, so that day I was going to, I had to go through. We had to go through some political channels. There was a psychologist, there was a warden, there was a bunch of people that had to agree to all this because it was like they were trying to do some testing with these prisoners. And so the first day they said, like, we're going to do the class. They had 7 prisoners come in, and there was in this room, and they wanted 2 guards to come in with me. And I said, that's not going to do. You're not going to have 2 guards watching. You know how it is,
Yeah.
like watching. So I told them I didn't want to do it that way. I would rather do it by themselves, keep the room locked, and I think I would be all right. So one of the guards, his name was Scap Johnson. The prisoners really respected him. He took the class.
Ah, very
Remember, he said,
cool.
I'll take the class.
Perfect solution.
Yeah, and the class went really well. And there I signed a contract for 3 years and went 3 days a week. I taught them pranayama and breathing techniques. And I had a really good relationship with the inmates for years.
Incredible,
And some,
Margabandhu.
yeah, some of them were really good guys. Some of them were like a couple murderers and stuff. But they trusted me, and I got into their language, and I know how to respond to them. And it was, yeah, and I went 3 times. So when actually, after I think it was 3 or 5 years, the grant was over, and politically they didn't want to do it anymore. I volunteered to just teach for nothing because, I wanted to leave these guys, but they couldn't do it. So
Gotcha.
yeah, so it was really something, but
That's
it
so
was,
cool that you dedicated 5 years. That's a long,
yeah, 3 times a week.
consistent. That's incredible. That's
Yeah,
incredible. I love
yeah.
hearing that story. You know,
There's a,
tell me.
sorry, okay,
No, please
good.
tell me. Tell me.
We actually, there was a part of what we wanted to do with the woman psychologist, his name was Crane Grosbeck. She was really into rehabbing the inmates. That's what she wanted to do. So I don't know if you ever visited a prison, but the diet is like horrendous. So we talked about working with the diet. And at that time, there was a fellow in North Carolina. His name was Bo Luzoff. And he was working with inmates too. So he got a hold of me, and we were trying to get a program together for nutrition for inmates, you know. But like once again, politically speaking, it didn't work out. But I felt that because the diet is horrendous. I mean, I used to eat with them sometimes, just sit down during lunch, and it was like sugar, white flour, mashed potato. It was like terrible. you
I
know.
hear the food is
Uh,
not very
it
good.
was like it was
Yeah.
like a man. I'm saying, wow, if I ate like that, I'd be dead in 2 days. But that part didn't work out. So, but it was a really nice experience. And then I also taught in the psychiatric ward in St. Joseph's Hospital in Paterson, New Jersey. I did that for a long time.
Did you
Yeah.
have any harrowing experiences in that department? Because like I remember I've from learning pranayama, I've heard people say stories about how you have to be careful when learning pranayama. And then I heard my teacher made a joke once that there's like dedicated wards in India for pranayama victims. Like if you didn't practice pranayama properly, you could have some type of psychiatric reaction. And personally, I've never experienced that. I don't know if you've ever met anybody over your years of teaching and practice that has had a negative reaction to pranayama, but I'm so curious to hear about what you're working with psychiatric patients, what type of reaction you
Well,
witness.
I was very careful. See, psychiatric, because some of them are on medication. So you have to be very careful. And I know heard a lot of people say that, you have to be careful with pranayama, it could be dangerous. I've been teaching it over 54 years. I never had an experience where I felt, maybe because I felt that I knew what I was doing, but never that had a really bad experience. Some people, because of their digestion or the pressure, sometimes you have to work with them a little bit. But there's different breathing techniques that you could do that would counteract whatever they were feeling, see? And there's pranayama techniques for digestion, for relaxation. So, I mean, I learned directly from Swami Satchidananda. So whenever I had a problem, I would just, I would. ask him certain. So I had firsthand experience. I
Yes.
had experience with a fellow in Watts during when they had the riots in years ago, and there was a African American fellow. He was in a wheelchair, and he couldn't. He was in a car accident, and friends of mine asked me to go see him. And I saw him Satyananda, what should I do? I called him up. I said, I'm teaching the fellow, he can't move his fingers or his hands. What could I do to help? So he said, do the three-part deep breathing. He says, and during the inhalation, let him bend forward and come back on the exhalation. Just like very little movements.
Mm.
After about 3 weeks, he started moving his fingers.
Mm.
Because that prana went right into the rest of his body.
Amazing.
And he was, he's still in the wheelchair. And then so I would call Gurudev again, Swami Satchidananda again. I said, is there anything else I could do? He says, ask him what was his last thought before the accident.
Mm.
So I asked him, and there was a trauma. And what happens, and I told Swami, he says, sometimes when there's an accident, the trauma manifests at such a fierce vibration that would like really affect the person, not only mentally, but physically. See? So the fellow told me what the trauma was, and we worked on that with a little meditation, and he seemed to get better and better. Yeah, it was really nice. I was in California, so I had to go back, so I kind of lost contact with him. But for the month I was with him, there was some results.
That's amazing. That's incredible.
Yeah,
Do you think the rocking of the body forward and back in relation to the inhale and exhale
yeah,
create
that
sort of like
yeah.
lever system or like almost like it?
Well, it allowed the prana to enter deep into where the core of his digestion. That's where he was having problems too. He would
Uh,
get nausea.
that
So,
makes sense. That makes sense. You
I
know,
mean, go ahead, Todd. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I've seen my first introduction to Satchidananda was I was born in the 70s, and then in the late 80s I started listening to 60s music and getting nostalgic and kind of wishing that I was around for Woodstock. And then so I was watching a Woodstock film and I saw a yogi with orange robes on, and I thought that's amazing. What's going on here? And then it had on this particular film there was like the classic footage that we see of Woodstock, of some hippies hanging out doing some yoga, also having a wild drug induced experience as well. And then and I remember it caught my attention as to like how fascinating that here's this Indian yoga guru spending time at Woodstock and having this interaction with all of the folks that were seeking some type of liberation. Can you talk a little bit about that time period and what you learned from? I don't know if you did experiment with hallucinogens, but what did Satchidananda teach in relationship to how to do it naturally, or what his thoughts were on
That's,
all these crazy Westerners tripping
that's,
out?
that's exactly what he told me. Usually in the beginning with Swami Satchidananda, if you want to have a personal consultation with him, you did that. It was like going to see a psychiatrist almost. So, and at that time I did hallucinogenics, other herbs, getting high every day. So when I went to see him, he was asking me, we talked, it was just a casual conversation. Then he asked me what type of, drugs I did, and I told him. So he told me about what LSD, why it was so popular. And at that time, Aldous Huxley and Timothy Leary were advocates of. So he says, what happens when you take a chemical like that? And he broke down all the compounds in LSD. It's, what they were in. He says that type of chemical, what it does, it releases serotonin from the brain at a very rapid pace. He says, what happens with your third eye? There's a channel. He says, it opens up the third eye, the serotonin being released opens up the third eye very rapidly. And that's when you get all these visions. What happens, it closes shut. The next day, you're really lost because all those thoughts manifested, you couldn't figure out what it was all about. He says what meditation does, during meditation, when your mind is completely still, it opens up that third eye very slowly, but doesn't close anymore. So you get that awareness stays with you. And you can interpret that awareness through that meditation and on a daily basis, your mind will get clearer and you'll be able to see or explain what was happening at that time. See?
Wow.
So
Wow.
that's how I explain meditation and the difference between meditation and drugs. So it was very something I brought right into, So I
Yeah.
did the meditation every day, and the
Oh,
posture, breathing.
very
It
cool. You made mention that he knew the chemical breakdown of
was some,
LSD.
I don't know how you know it. He just know.
Did you
He
feel like
explained it.
how would you what sort of insight do you have on his like level of intelligence? Did he strike you as a very intelligent man, very intuitive? What if you were to
He was
analyze?
on all levels. On all
Yeah.
levels, he was like that.
Yeah.
I mean, like I give you an example. Like he knew his students very well. And when I went to see him, I told him everything about everything, personal depression, whatever's going on. I never told him I was bad in math. It was like, why would he even say that, right? What does I get to learn him? He would call me up and say, Margabandhu, he says, I'm getting a jacuzzi tub, but the tub is 37 inches. The doorway said, what could you get a tub? He would say that, and I was figuring out dimension. I said, why does he tell me that? The next day he calls me up and he's telling me he's getting these Michelin tires and the rims are 40, and I'm saying, you got to be kidding. And then I figured after the third time, I figured it out. I said, wow, he really knows you. It was like that's how well he knew us.
Yeah.
He knew
That's
the
cool.
deepest part of what was going on with you. And
Yeah.
he figured out every time with me, you know.
Was he would you say was he a strict teacher or was he
No,
was compassion more of his basis?
the compassion was there, but he wanted for you to be the best of where you could be. So if that required a little discipline, he was right there.
Yeah.
You
Do you
know,
have any times that you can remember where you feel he disciplined you?
but many times he left me on the Santa Monica freeway once.
What, you guys are driving in the car together and you made him upset
Really,
and
really,
you
really,
pulled
really
over and
hard.
dropped.
I got to tell you the story. I know this is going to be good, but I got to tell you the story. So I get a call. Swami Satchidananda is in Pasadena. I forgot what town he was in. It was someplace. I forget the name. Anyway, it was in California, and I go to see him. And there was a couple of cars, and from this place where we were going to go to like a housewarming from Swami Satchidananda. So there was two women in the car that I know was kind of like I didn't know them, but there was like a flirtation going on. So, and I was in the car with Swami Satchidananda, and this girl I was looking behind me, like to see if she was coming. So he stops the car on the freeway. He says, Margabandhu, I don't know, you see that tire is, something like that. So I get out of the car, and also he takes off. Then he might be, the coach is girl. That's how he went, the discipline. But the best one was what happened when he first came to New York. They did a program at Carnegie Hall on yoga, and they had two. Hadi Zupan was his name, and another fellow were demonstrating the postures. Gurdev was sitting in the chair in the middle, and these two guys were doing all the advanced stuff. Mayor Lindsay was there. Everybody was there, and they did the advanced postures. It was a fantastic show, and it was run by the New York Times. It was unbelievable, and the people were really mesmerized by these fellows doing the postures. So 2 years later, he's in New Jersey. Now I'm going to do the postures. Okay. So I'm training like for the Olympics and everybody's cheering me on. My ego got so big my head couldn't fit through the door. I'm going to do this because he's at Philly Dickinson University and I'm going to do the postures. Todd, I was like training like I was going to go to the Olympics. All
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
I'm cheering me on. My ego was so big, it was ridiculous. Like about 20 minutes before the postures, he let somebody else do it. He put me in charge of extension cords. And that was it. And somebody else postures.
That
So I
was it.
knew
He
he
could
worked on
see
my
the
ego.
ego and he knew, this isn't going to be good. So let's get him doing the electrical instead.
Yep.
Oh
So
man, classic. I love it.
so his discipline was, it was, and and you understand. I understood. A lot of times, I really understood.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um,
When did you open a yoga studio? Because if you've
we
been,
opened the studio first started. Eddie Brigatti was the lead singer of the Rascals. I was living with him at the time. So he was on tour a lot. So, and what happened, there was a couple from Montclair, New Jersey. They wanted to open up a center. So and Hadi Zupan was the director of the New York IYI. So he called me up one day. He says, Margabandhu, I'm teaching a class in Montclair. These people want to open up a center. Why don't you come and take the class? Because I used to do the postures. So I go take the class, and after the class, these people that wanted to start the center asked me, hey, I did the postures pretty good. And they said if I would help out. And I really didn't want to get involved, but I said, okay, I'll help out. So I took teacher's training. When I finished teacher's training, the couple broke up, and now there's no center. So I'm a yoga teacher with no class. And but I was living with Eddie at the time. So he says, look, I'm on tour a lot. And he had a really big room apartment. He said, why don't you start classes here? So I invited friends over, and then, they knew it was Eddie Rigatti's apartment. I would get 40 people in the class.
Oh, wow.
We did that for almost a year. And I started going 2, 3 times a week in his apartment.
Yeah.
So there was a couple that came, and there was a building down the street from his apartment, and their parents owned the building, and we cleaned it out, and we were in that center for about how many years, Chuck? About 18 years. And then from there, we had a house in Convent Station. We rented it from the Sisters of Charity. There was a brother monk. His name was Brother David. He was close with Swami Satchidananda, and he was a Benedictine monk. And he did a lot of programs with Swami Satchidananda. So we became very close with him. He said, Margabandhu, if you want a place to live, there's a St. Elizabeth's College in Morristown, New Jersey, in Convent Station, New Jersey. He said, you can rent the house from them, and you could teach classes there. So we had a center in Garfield where we taught the classes, and we had a house where 17 of us lived there.
Oh, wow.
And so from there, we taught classes at this Convent Station, and then there was a lot of Morristown was the upper middle class area, so I met there's a lot of socialites there. So I met a woman who wanted to have private classes. So we went to her house, and I go to her house, and there's people sitting in the living room. She's introduced me, and she says, "Oh, this is my son-in-law, Kurt Vonnegut."
Oh, man, I love Kurt's book. I've read so many of Kurt's books. I
Yeah.
love
So
Kurt
yeah,
Vonnegut.
that was his son-in-law. So, and then this other lady was there was a lot of money with them. So there was one
Yeah.
woman, Miss Stoll, that took the class, and I taught her for 35 years.
Ah,
And she was Christopher Reeve's aunt. So
wow.
I'm Superman.
Yes. Yes, I do know.
So a lot of all these people. And this woman gave us $25,000 to buy the building that we're now in. So
Ah,
that's why we're here.
and
So
you're still in that same location.
we're in Fairfield, New Jersey. Beautiful
Ah,
space.
I gotta
It's
come
really,
visit. That sounds
oh,
so
I love
great,
it. I would love
Margabandhu.
it.
I can't wait. I'm coming. I can't
Yeah.
wait.
I want to come visit you in Florida, though.
Well, I'll come up there in summer and you come down in winter. That's a perfect
Okay.
date. All right.
Yeah, but we've been here. So 54 years later, we're still here.
Wow. That is so inspirational, Margabandhu, because I hope I can do the same thing. I want to
Oh,
follow in your footsteps. I do. I really do. I feel like there's so much joy in holding down a center and teaching.
really?
I want to keep going until the very end. And so I love to meet you and hear your enthusiasm. You sound just as passionate about it as if you
Oh,
started
yeah.
yoga yesterday. So I love that.
More
So
so.
refreshing.
We have a
So
really
more so, you feel more inspired. I love that. So, I'm thinking if it's been 54 years, this has to be, if it's 2025, it's like 1971, somewhere around about there.
actually Meg Gurudev was 67,
Okay.
68, and then we opened up our own center in 19. Actually, Eddie's apartment was a center, so it was actually 69. But then
Mm,
housing wise, how long have we been here, Shaq? In this building where we own now, we own it. The
yeah.
institute owns
Yeah.
it.
So, I mean, with that many years, with 5 decades, what have you seen in the yoga world that you're very proud of to see the evolution? And what have you seen that you're a little disappointed in?
Most of it really people have really responded very well. The people that took it like to a higher level, knowledge, th- their lives became much better, And I teach it, but a lot of times I do different programs in different centers. So I I do a lot of pranayama has really been very popular lately. So there's one place in South Jersey I go and everybody wants to learn pranayama because it wasn't really that big with other centers.
Yeah.
So past two centers I work with, they wanted pranayama. So and there's an interest in them and I see a lot of people they feel much better by doing a complete yoga class, yoga program. See, the way Swami Satchidananda designed our integral yoga, he covered all the aspects of yoga. That's why they called it integral yoga. It covers the breathing, the meditation, Raja yoga, bhakti yoga, the chanting. See, so he covered everything in one shot. When he first came here, he only had a 30-day visa. So we were all like 60s experts, pseudo intellects, like chemistry majors, those type of guys. So he says, "What am I going to do with these kids?" Plus, he was, like people used to get on his case. You're teaching these like hippies and stuff. They're like, they have no direction. So he gave us the direction. See, but the
Yeah.
class he taught us covered everything. You know,
Yes. Yes.
and all the different aspects of yoga. He worked with our diet. He worked with everything possible for us. And
Yes.
and we all bought into it. Peter Max was one of the main advocates. So we had access to everybody and everything. So between
Yes.
he had very successful people supporting him. See, Alice Coltrane, you know.
Wow.
So yeah.
What have you observed? And maybe this is off your radar completely. Have you, is there anything that's happened in the yoga world, in the yoga community, in the evolution of yoga in the last 50 years that you've witnessed that sometimes makes you go, oh man, I wish yoga wasn't being represented that way? Or is there something that's caught your attention that's made you feel like it's being misrepresented in its authenticity?
Well, sometimes it becomes just like an exercise. I mean,
Yeah.
it's more like power yoga. I mean, it's all good. I mean, you're doing yoga to some degree, but a lot of it's misinterpreted. The real meaning. Finding yourself and stuff. A lot of it's
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
like physically oriented. In a way.
Yeah.
And it's not that bad, but if you want to find the spirit of it, you know how it is. It goes deeper than what they sometimes they advocate. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's their lack of experience, maybe too.
Yeah.
We
Good point.
learned in a way that we learned all the different aspects. He taught us Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, all the different levels. So we were
Yes.
fortunate to have a teacher. And then if you have someone that could explain that to you and then you buy into it, then you're fine. But a lot of times people don't have that experience or don't have that access to a person that would teach them that. And
Yes.
that's what I lost sometimes. I remember one time we was at a talk and someone asked Swami Satchidananda, Gurudev, I don't think yoga is, we need to do aerobics.
Uh,
So he says, go look up aerobics in the dictionary. It means with oxygen. And there's nothing that brings more oxygen into the body than yoga, the
mm,
postures.
yes.
So that was his answer.
Y- Yeah.
So,
You don't need like kind of like you don't need to go and do a million jumping
no,
jacks and ride your bike 100 miles. Like
no,
yoga, breathing, you're gonna get it all.
you're going to get it all. And that's stuck in my head. And so the breathing is the most important thing for me right now.
That's
It's
amazing.
like 1K.
Have you maintained a vegetarian diet through
Yes,
the course of these last 50 years or so?
yes.
Wow.
I I was working in a deli when I became a vegetarian. The
Yeah.
last I tried was a liverwurst sandwich because I used to like liverwurst. And I made a vow to become a vegetarian. I was going to say, let me try it for a while. I took one bite of the sandwich, I put it down, and that was it. 54 years later, I
Wow.
never showed it. It wasn't even interested in me. And I
Yeah.
was working in a deli, cutting cold cuts every day, so making sausage and everything. It was like ridiculous. My boss went nuts. My boss, the
What
real Sicilian, he's a real Sicilian. He's, what are
what
you kidding me? Vegetarian?
what
But I
what
did.
did what did your mom and dad think?
My mother and father were really great. My sister, my older sister Rosemary, who's a scientist, she got concerned because I might be lacking something. But no, my family is very accepting.
Yeah.
My father and mother did yoga after a while.
Yeah, you got your mom doing it. That's cool.
And my mom did it. My father did it for a while. And when my mom passed, my father even came to classes at the institute.
Nice.
Yeah. My
Nice.
parents, my father being Sicilian, being stubborn sometimes, he was really good. You know, my parents were pretty cool.
That's
So, but
amazing. That's so
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So for me, the yoga path was easy. It was something I bought right into. I bought into Swami Satchidananda's teachings. I was surrounded by I had good support from friends, family. So it was very easy for me.
Yes.
And whatever I did, I lived in an ashram for, I took the vow of a monk for a year. I was celibate for a while, so yeah, I did the whole thing, and I found it very rewarding and very healing and very mentally relaxing for me. Yeah. I can't
Uh,
imagine doing anything else.
I hear ya. I hear ya. After the breath that you mentioned, the inhale, the retention, the exhale, what is your next go-to breathing technique that you either enjoy yourself or enjoy teaching?
Well, for my own personal practice, which I feel is maybe I don't want to say advanced, but it's a little more than I would normally teach a regular class. I do a lot of bandhas and mudras. You know, there's a technique called Prana mudra. I know the hand mudras,
Hmm.
and I do that every morning. And each hand mudra deals with each hand. There's different fingers for the fingers, and they work on different areas of the body, the different five pranas, samana prana, udana prana, and I work on that every day to bring that energy into different areas of my body. I had a fractured knee, so I do udana prana every morning to bring the energy to that particular part where the knee had been fractured. See,
Is the
so
Udana the down breath?
yeah, do udana. In other words, there's prana. Then the prana itself is the one from the navel to the throat. That's prana. Apana prana is downward. That goes from the navel to the lower extremities. Samana prana is the digestive tract. It goes gallbladder, liver, stomach, and spleen. Udana prana is the extremities from the shoulders to the fingertips, hips to the toes, throat to the top of the head. And then Vayana prana is all the pranas. So each finger mudra represents a different prana. So, for example, if you're doing something with the gallbladder, you would do the hand mudras for Samana prana. So that's what I do every day. I do each mudra, and like depending on what particular part of the body I feel needs that extra energy. But I've been doing Udana prana for the past year or so just to heal the fracture in my knee.
Mm,
It works.
nice. Amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And then,
in this method or the way that Satchidananda taught you, was there emphasis on trying to increase the duration of kumbhaka, of retention? Was there any sort of like, here you'll build up to maybe doing 5 seconds, potentially 10, 30, a minute long? Was there ever any sort of like endurance challenge involved in the
he
kumbhaka?
tells you be careful. Be careful with that, with the retention, because sometimes, like you said before, you have to be careful. So there's one, we do the alternate nostril breathing. So, and then the advanced stages, they call it Sukha, where when you're inhaling 5 and then usually exhaling, counting 10, that's the normal one. When you do the retention, you inhale 5, hold 5, exhale 10. Then you build up to 1, 4, 2. See,
Got it.
inhale
Got it.
10, build up. So then it goes inhale 5, hold 20, exhale 10, 20. See,
Got
so
it.
that's an advanced variation. Plus the different bandhas for the, Kapalabhati, that breathing technique. We do Alandada bandha, Ula bandha. So yeah, we have to be careful. So in the beginning class, we don't teach the bandhas or the mudras. So we're very careful with that.
Gotcha.
Uh, what I had success with, I was teaching autistic children, you know, and I found that the alternate nostril breathing seemed to help because of the fact that when I did research on the autism, most of them, there's fibers that connect the different hemispheres in the brain. They call it the corpus callosum. And a lot of autistic children, I found that they don't have enough fibers. So that switching doesn't go. It doesn't happen. So they do a thing called stimming, where they vibrate. That's what they call it when autistic children start moving their body because the energy gets stuck. So the alternate nostril breathing seems to help that. He seems to stop that.
Wow.
Also, autism, I found that a lot of them have digestive disorders. So I would give them certain herbs for the stomach, and that seemed to help out a lot.
I know.
So I worked with kids and children for about what, 5, 6 years. Yeah, about 5 or 6 years. Yeah. So I
Incredible.
found, yeah, that really helped out a lot. Yeah.
Sometimes with autism, children might have a hard time like focusing and staying still.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, the thought of attempting to teach pranayama in that environment could be a more challenging environment to do it. What was some of the things that you would do to make it where it seemed fun for them that they'd want to do it versus like the teacher coming in and saying, here, do this and follow me and having them be like, I don't even, if know I want to do this. What was that like?
That's a good question. Well, I remember when I first went to teach years ago, I was teaching school. There was autism, a bunch of kids, and I asked Swami Satchidananda what to do. I'm going to go to the school. I had no experience. This is like 40 years ago. I just started teaching. He says, bring a drum and do the chanting and give them the balancing exercises.
Mm,
So, and
bring
I
a
found
drum and chant. Bring a drum and chant and
chanting,
have them try to balance at the same.
yeah, do the balance.
How
The
fun.
chanting,
Yeah.
the vagus nerve.
Mm,
You do the chanting, it goes right through the vagus nerve to the parts of the brain, the hippocampus area and the hypothalamus, the memory center of the brain, as well as the emotional center. That's what chanting does. So, and I taught them balancing, and I went to the school for hyperactive kids, emotional kids, and I taught balancing and the chanting, and the directors were amazed that the kids responded well because they're mimicking you too. Autistic kids like to mimic you, and it was pretty successful. Yeah.
that's
There's a
cool.
woman I worked for. She had an organization called Ashrams for Autism. So she had teachers. So I used to teach the teachers what to teach.
Oh man, that is
I
so.
worked with diet, I worked with diet and everything with them.
I'm so
Yeah.
happy I'm hearing this because I have a local teacher who is involved in an organization called Surfers for Autism.
Oh,
And
excellent.
and she's like, we got to do a yoga program for the surfers for autism. And I said, okay, I'll follow your lead. She was so excited, but I'll have to introduce her to you and perhaps I'm
Yeah, it'd
sure
be
you have a
nice.
ton of great ideas. That's amazing. Margabandhu, what is your name translate as? And did Satchidananda give you your name?
Yeah, a friend to all that comes across his path.
Can you say that again, please?
Friend to all that comes across his path.
Thank you. Nice. And that was a name that he gave you. Is that something that's a part of the tradition of studying with him is receiving a spiritual name?
Marga means path, Bandhu means friend.
Yeah. When you meet people that have no idea what yoga is, I don't even know if that probably happens to you now because probably everybody coming up to you is
Yeah,
like your reputation precedes you. Know? Do you introduce yourself as Margabandhu to everyone? Is it
yeah, I try. Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's rough being a yogi in your hometown because everybody knows you. Like not
Yeah.
that I went somewhere else in Margabandhu. I grew up with all my friends, but they call me Margabandhu. Yeah,
Yeah. Love
some
it.
of none of my friends are into yoga, and I still see them. But they're great. They support me and everything. Yeah.
Do
So
you travel to help me out with the name of the ashram that's really famous around about the
Satchidananda Ashram.
yes, please. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
called
we try to go there once a year. Oh, I
nice.
try. I was there a couple months ago.
That's Yogaville, right? Yogaville?
Yoga though. Yeah, yeah.
Where is that?
It's in Virginia.
Nice. In the country, in the mountains?
It's a Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in the middle. What's the name? I can't even think. Charlottesville, near Charlottesville.
Okay. What is your experience going there?
Oh, I love it there. Last
Nice.
time I went there, I gave satsang there.
Nice. Nice. And
So,
are there residents there? Like, is it an
oh yeah,
ashram?
people live there. Yeah, monks. There's a lot of monks there. A lot of female monks mostly, but there's a lot of people. It's like a community. It's like a city. They made it like a city. It's not only an ashram. There's a city. People, regular people have regular jobs. But everybody's into yoga and supports Swami Satchidananda's, teachings. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
that's gotta be incredible.
oh
Is
yeah.
what does it entail to become a monk or a nun within this tradition?
Well, you take vows, you follow the teachings and you take vows of, different vows that you want to live by. And, it's For me, it would be, when I did take the vows, I was okay with it, because I wasn't married. But, it depends on, you know, where you feel, how you feel about the teachings. And if you're willing to go further, then, I had the experience one time. I had to give a talk on celibacy to 150 nuns and priests. And I wasn't even a celibate at the time. I had to go, I'm saying, I called Gurudev. I says, Gurudev, I got to talk. What am I going to do? So he said, he told me the first thing to do. He said, tell him it's not a sacrifice and give him the physiological benefits. And so I went that day, and I had first got maybe 50 years ago, and I was all just nuns and priests. There was nobody else involved. And I gave him to talk about it, how, physiology of it and stuff. And one of the priests was a scientist, and he came up to me after the talk. He said, that was very interesting, So
Wow.
I, Guru, his main, I would say, main attribute that he was all about was that he explained everything to the lowest common denominator. He made you really understand what you were doing.
Mm.
And that was no matter what you were doing, he would explain it. And that's how he was such a clear thinker.
That's that is really interesting. Did when he came to US, I don't know what year it was. What was his first visit? You said he,
He met Peter Max and Conrad Rooks, was in Italy, I think. And they brought him to New York. 67, 66 or 67, yeah.
and
And
then from that point, did he travel internationally again, or did he kind of stay
no,
put?
what happens? He had a 30-day or 60-day visa to stay in New York, and Peter Max had invited a group of people, his friends, because at that time Peter Max was really popular. You know who he is, right? The artist,
I
Peter
do.
Max.
I do.
So people kept coming, and then they opened up a center in New York City. That's where I used to go. See, until we opened up our own center. And people really gravitated towards him. He spoke at Carnegie Hall, he different talks, and he became friendly with the Rabbi Gelberman and Brother David, a friend, a Benedictine monk and a rabbi. So between the three of them, it was like, it was really interesting, and that's how yoga became more popular, just with those three men together. There was a retreat in the beginning, an Amherst retreat. There was Rabbi Gelman, Swami Satchidananda, Brother David. Uh, there was a Buddhist monk. It was the first Amherst retreat. 350 people showed up. It was amazing. It
Wow.
was a 10-day silent retreat.
Did it
And then,
did it seem to you when you met him that he was a proponent of all religion? And if you were to try to uh, if you were to attempt to put what philosophical leaning he was, would you say he was like an Advaita Vedantist, or was he, did he have any specific
or
like,
the Hindu, he
yeah,
was a,
yeah,
but that with him, because I was in such a space, that never entered my mind.
yeah,
I just
yeah,
wanted to see,
of
you know.
course, of course.
You look over here, you see we have our yantra has all the different yoga, all the different religions. See, he introduced it's a way that we all understood all religions are acceptable.
Yeah,
See,
I love that.
mm,
Yep.
yeah.
Yes.
It didn't,
Yes.
no matter what religion, it didn't matter. Yeah.
It sounds like he is very inclusive in relation to whatever your religion, male,
He
female.
was comfortable. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was comfortable anywhere. He was anywhere, wherever he spoke. He would speak at a Buddhist monastery, a Hindu center, a Catholic church. It didn't matter where he was. And he made everybody around him feel comfortable. And to me, it was amazing that he knew so much about everything else. You know what I mean? He just had that feel for everything.
It
So,
is incredible reading his work that, yeah.
yeah.
If- what were the circumstances of his transitioning from this world, his death? Was there, what,
Well,
when was that, and what was the circumstances?
well, he kind of knew he was going to, you know, he contacted us here in New Jersey, and he said, and he had his secretary get a group of us and get together. At that time, we didn't know what was going on, and we met with him. We stayed with him, and maybe 2 months later he passed. Yeah, 2 months later he passed. So I guess that was his way of saying. I guess he knew he was going to pass. His time was up. You know,
Yeah.
he just had a handle on everything. And when we try to figure it out as much as we can, it's like, so
Yeah. Understood. What year was that?
2002. Yeah, 2002.
2002.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Did the community draw together? Were there any
Yes.
challenges in that time
No,
period?
no.
Yeah. Yeah.
He taught us well.
Yeah.
He made us understand. The people that stayed with him understood his whole trip, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially here in New Jersey, we have a song, we have a small group, but everybody's on the same page.
Understood.
Yeah,
What does a day in your life look like? How many hours a day are you teaching? Are you
I have
what,
I have my own practice. See, I'm here every day. I mean, thank God. I mean, he gave me such a position to be in. I'm here every day, So I have my own personal practice, but then I teach. I teach at Fairleigh Dickinson University for the past 54 years, and it's accredited. Yoga is accredited, so I teach there 2 days a week. Uh, and then I work on people, and then in between teach a class or something. So, I don't know, it's really pretty easy day.
and I noticed that you're a master herbologist as well.
I don't call myself a master. I know a lot about herbs. I just did a program Saturday on once a year. There's this dentist, Dr. Malika, and he has a school, a college for it's called the Integrative uh, uh, Program for dentists, just for dentists. So once a year, I give a talk. I'm the herbalist, and give it. I just did it last Saturday. I'm there from 9 to 5 on talking about herbs to dentists. Not only herbs, lifestyle and stuff like that. And they come from all over the world, dentists. Like there was a dentist from China, was from
Wow.
Costa Rica. It's a really good school. And Dr. Malika organizes school, and I do all the alternative healing methods for dentistry, and a lot of them want to know about their own personal health as well. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Like, for example, I talked a little bit this Saturday about constipation with dentists because, you know, they're doing root canal and you got to go to the bathroom. They're not going to leave. They can't leave, So
Mm.
something like that, yeah, you like say. So I was explaining to them, like what to do and how to handle that, because a lot of times it happens, they're in the middle of a root canal. You can't say, hey, I'll be right back. You can't, the mouth's open. So you got to really be careful. So they have a really, I explained to them, I said, you really have a tough job sometimes just for your own personal health,
Yeah. I hear it's a really challenging job, like neck and shoulders, being
Yeah,
hunched over in that
yeah,
position. They can have really
yeah.
chronic pain.
Sciatica, they get, yeah. So a lot of them want to learn not only about herbology, but their own personal health, what they
Yeah.
could do,
Very
you know.
cool.
So
And
and there's
I also saw that you're a massage therapist and an
acupressure, yeah.
acupressure and reflexology practitioner. At what point did you feel called to do hands-on body work?
Well, I always felt that way, even as a kid. I don't know. But when I was at Hippocrates, Hippocrates.
Well, I know there's one here in West Palm Beach. Is that the same
Yeah.
one?
This was run by Dr. Ann Wigmore when it was in Boston.
Okay.
When I was in Boston, I met Victoris Kovinskas. He was author of Survival of the 21st Century. So I was running the kitchen there. So Dr. Ann would put me in charge of working on certain people that needed extra help. So I learned reflexology because the main therapy at Hippocrates was reflexology. And then while I was there was a fellow named Stephen Uprichard. He was considered the master acupressure person in Boston. So I took classes with him. And then I learned acupuncture from Dr. Ralph Allendale. But I never practiced acupuncture. I never felt comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But so then I studied with Dr. Christopher Herbology, and and then so yeah, so that's what I do. I work with people. They come in. I do iridology, and I try to figure out. I write out a program for them. I make herbs for them. You should come if you come up here. We'll do a whole thing. Or
Oh
I go
man,
down.
that sounds
Uh,
That's
Then about you would do the whole thing. That's all.
that would be incredible, Margabandhu. I love all the facets that you're speaking of. I mean, I just love that you have such a breadth of history, the amount of different situations you have taught in, from psychiatric wards to prisons to with children with autism to holding down your own studio for 50 plus years, running teacher training programs, teaching priests and nuns about celibacy prior prior
That
to
was a challenge.
that one would make my palms sweat.
Because
That
I
would
felt
make
guilty.
yeah. Here, everybody, don't do it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But I always remember the first thing he told me, it was, he said, tell him it's not a sacrifice.
yeah. That makes
See,
sense.
because I used to be an altar boy.
Me too.
So,
Yeah.
I was an altar boy,
Yeah.
and then I was a juvenile delinquent, then I was a yogi.
Then I was a juvenile delinquent. I went
So,
from altar boy to delinquent to yogi.
yeah.
Yeah. That's the typical trajectory, isn't it? I think
Yes,
I
yes, yeah,
followed
that's
that
great.
same.
But I always had like a yearning to learn more about God. That was something that I always, even as a kid, I was saying, who is God? What's it all about? And then when I met Swami Satchidananda, he made it really clear how everything should be,
Mm,
or what I should do to experience that. And that's it.
man,
So yoga for us, you, me, it's a nice for us. It's a lifestyle almost, and people come to us. It's a blessing that they come to us, and we're able to make them feel relaxed. Even if you make them just feel relaxed, that's like a blessing for us. So I find very blessed that we're here. We have an environment that we have our own, right. You have your place, we have our place. So it's we're really fortunate. When you consider what's going on in the world today, we're really fortunate to have a place where they come to us,
man.
you know,
Well said,
really.
Margabandhu. Well said. I am so grateful for this opportunity. Thank you so much. I mean, we're on a little 3 week run here where this podcast will be released. The next one will be with Reverend Jagannath, and then
Beautiful.
have
Oh, you
one with the
really love
two
it.
of you together, which I can't wait to have this opportunity to get the two of you together and hear stories from both of y'all. When I had a pre-podcast interview with you guys the other day, it was just so refreshing to see how much you guys respect each other. I love seeing that. It's really
My
something.
brothers, we're so
Yeah.
close.
Oh man. Well, I can't thank you enough. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
your generosity and thank you for holding it down for so long. And I can feel your passion for what you do. And it really is inspirational. And I just am very grateful. Thank you so much, Margabandhu.
Thank you. We're so proud of you, really.
Thank you.
God bless. Okay.